Now, regarding the immigration reform in terms of how it is playing in the conservative media, this has been fascinating because traditionally, Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, Fox News have opposed immigration reform like the kind that was introduced over this past week. And in fact, Rush Limbaugh took to his show and said that it was essentially up to him and the leading Fox News media organization to try and block this. Listen.
Thanks to Obama, now you have amnesty unless you get convicted of a major felony. I don't know that there's any stopping this. It's up to me and Fox News, and I don't think Fox News is that invested in this.
Daniel Marin's Rush Limbaugh saying it's up to him and Fox News to stop this. Is that the role of media? Is it the role of media to try to stop legislation? I always thought it was the role of media just to report on legislation.
Well, David, I mean, I think that was remarkably candid on the part of Rush Limbaugh. I mean, we were finally hearing it explicitly. That is that they view themselves as a political interest group, effectively, that is there to advocate and promote certain conservative policies and ideas. And he's basically saying, well, you know, I've talked with our sort of vast right-wing conspiracy over at Fox News, and we've decided we're going to sit this one out. I mean, yes, there's no question that that is a tremendous distortion of the role of the media. But like I said, I'm glad that they were at least admitting it.
Yeah, I mean, at least Rush Limbaugh was being honest. And you know what, I think this gets to another sort of problem that the conservative media is having right now, and that is, regardless of whether it's immigration or whether it's issues about gun control, the conservative media is in a tailspin right now just in terms of the number of people who are turning to them to talk about these issues. Fox News' ratings are the worst that they've been in now 12 years. And a lot of people on the right are wondering, you know, what can they do about it? And I would argue, and, you know, Fox isn't going to listen to me, but every time that Fox News comes across as an organization that has its thumb on the scale, or an organization that is in bed with Rush Limbaugh, whose role is to either promote or stop legislation, Americans, a lot of Americans in the middle, look at Fox News and say, okay, this is not a news organization, this is a propaganda tool. And for Fox News to be treated, I think, with any sort of measure of respect and dignity again, and to sort of earn the respect as a journalism organization, every time somebody like Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity or you know, any of the folks, you know, Mark Levin, say that it is up to Fox News to stop things, at that point, Fox News ought to come out and say, no, we're not going to stop things. We may talk about things. We may have a debate, but we are a news organization. We're going to cover what's going on. But when you hear the silence and the crickets from Fox News in the wake of what Rush Limbaugh said this week, when he said it is up to Fox News and myself to try and stop this, when Fox News doesn't respond and it sort of lets that hang in the air on the right, then it sends the message to conservatives that, yeah, they should be able to count on Fox News to play an advocacy role and not a reporting role. And while that may perhaps energize people on the right to watch Fox News, it diminishes Fox's credibility throughout, I think, most of the country, most of the center, and certainly on the left. And again, there are a lot of, you know, I've got a lot of friends from Fox News from when I worked there back in 1996 to 2001. I was there at the startup. It was a very different organization than it is now. But I still have a lot of friends over there, many of them who consider themselves journalists, and they are hurt because when the overall organization is not willing to stand up for journalism, then the people who are trying to do journalism over there, their work is tarnished, and they don't have the credibility that I think a lot of them would like. So, look, it's an interesting discussion for people who, you know, want to take action about what do you do about Rush Limbaugh, about Fox News possibly stopping something, encouraging something, blocking something. You know, Fox News has an outreach just like everybody else, in which people can call them. There's a Fox News viewer line. You can email them. You can email the shows. Go to the Fox News website, foxnews.com, and tell them, look, you know, I believe in diversity in the media. I believe that there should be a variety of voices covering a variety of different types of stories. Fox is going to cover certain stories that, frankly, MSNBC and others will not. Just like MSNBC may cover certain stories that is not on Fox's radar. And that's fine. There should be a diversity of views, a diversity of reporters that are going out there collecting a variety of stories. But it's important that they be covering these stories and not shaping them and not driving certain stories. And that's where I think, you know, look, I'm not one of those who believes that, you know, Fox News shouldn't exist. I believe that, you know, yeah, there should be a wide variety of news organizations, but they should be news organizations, not propaganda tools. And if Fox News could get back to doing what I thought it was doing early on, Just cover the news. Be aggressive about it. Cover whatever stories you want to cover. And yes, maybe there'll be certain stories that Fox News wants to cover that MSNBC doesn't. That's fine. But at least cover the stories objectively. Don't be part of the story. Don't be in bed with Rush Limbaugh to try to block something like immigration reform or gun control or whatever it is that the right doesn't like. Just cover the news. And if there's certain points about a debate that you feel aren't being represented, then fine, have that debate on your air. But every time a news organization is labeled as being an activist, being somebody who actually is involved in shaping the story or pushing a story or allowing a story to die, it is no longer a news organization. And I think until Fox finally comes around and recognizes how badly its brand has been damaged over these past several years by being labeled and being seen as a propaganda organization and not a news organization, my sense is that the ratings problems at Fox News are only going to continue. So anyway, that's my soapbox for today. Coming up, we're going to take a closer look about some of what's going on in foreign policy. An interesting week this week in terms of confirmation hearings for John Kerry, who is now officially the Secretary of State, and also Chuck Hagel was nominated by President Obama to be Secretary of Defense. John Kerry's confirmation hearing went smoothly, probably about as smooth as possible, although there were a few Republicans who voted against him. We'll explain why. And then there's Chuck Hagel, who's running into a pretty difficult time with his confirmation and had a difficult time himself in articulating some of the basic principles of the Obama administration during Chuck Hagel's confirmation hearing earlier this week. We will get into that when Take Action News continues.